today. It's out of the book of Luke, and we begin in chapter 15, verses 1 through 3. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathered around to hear him, but the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable, 11 through 32. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired men have food to spare, and here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The other brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. Bless you. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fatted calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'" God's word.
This whole passage, you gotta know the setting for Jesus' story to understand. You gotta understand who he's talking to understand what he's talking about. He had tax collectors and sinners, people who were not acceptable in the church of the day, in the synagogues of the day. Then he had the good folks, the Pharisees. The Pharisees have gotten a lot of bad rap in our Bible because they opposed the Christians in the early days. But they were good people. They prayed every day. They went to synagogue every Sabbath. And they went to the temple at least once a year. They did what they're supposed to do, and they followed the law. They were good people. And like good people everywhere, they had a tendency to look at the not-so-good people and say things like, "Thank God I'm a Pharisee and not one of those lowly sinners." And Jesus is drawing to himself the very people who don't have a place in church. And the Pharisees and the good synagogue goers want to know, why are you touching these people? Why are you welcoming these people. And so he tells the story of the lost and found. And I can imagine those good synagogue goers listening to this, and they are tut-tut-tutting all the way through. First of all, here is a ungrateful, unrepentant, stupid young boy who wants his father to die. And then his father doesn't lecture him, he doesn't smack him, he doesn't ground him. He writes a check. He gives them the money. And you can go see those Pharisees and good folks going, well, what kind of dad is this? He doesn't, give his child the right upbringing, and now he's going to lose half of his inheritance. Actually, it was a third. Younger son got 1/3. Older son got 2/3. Then the boy does exactly what everyone expects. He takes his money and he heads off to the big city in a faraway land. And the kid, it says, wasted his money on foolish living. He could have put all his money in an investment, like with Bernie Madoff. But thought it was a good idea. Or he could have just partied all along and blown his money. Doesn't matter. He's out. And here comes the recession. Here comes the collapse. And there are no jobs. And the only job he can find is to slop hogs. And I don't think you can get any lower for a Jewish boy. And we're saying, well, that's good. He got punished for it. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story are these simple words. He came to his right mind. So he heads home, and he's practicing his confession all the way. You can just hear him walking and talking to himself. Father, I have sinned against God and against you. I am not worthy to be called your son. Please allow me to be one of your servants. And he gets within sight of home, and here comes his dad. Now, those good synagogue folks, good church folks, are going, boy, no self-respecting father would get up and run for anything, let alone running to this kid who just wasted all of his money. The father just plain accepts him back. No questions asked. We've been saving up this fatted calf for a big party. Let's have it today because my son was lost and now he's found. He was dead. And now he's alive. And good folks are going, no, that's not right. Well, they're having the party, and here comes the older son. And finally, the good folks are hearing that, and they're saying, well, now we're going to hear some sense. Did you know what prodigal really means? Prodigal means to give extravagantly. Extravagant generosity. And the father does it all the way through. Kid wants his inheritance. Father writes the check. Kid runs away and blows it. Comes back. Father comes a-running. Father gives him the robe, the sandals, the ring, the credit card. Gives him a party like they've never had before. And when the older son is having his problems with that, the father gives him his ear, and his understanding, and his acceptance. Extravagant generosity is what the Father does. And God knows no bounds to love. Thanks be to God.